object of TaxiChronicles is to allow real riders with real stories share their experience and enhance your life. So sit back and enjoy the journey. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have someone all the way across from the other side of the pond. They're working in the financial industry, but they also have had an interesting career and still having a career in football, women's football. And as it's International Women's Day today, we may as well push her to the front of the queue and publish this tomorrow. Nice to have you here.
Hi there, nice to be here.
So first of all, why England? Why did you come to England?
I think that's an interesting one. So I'd been studying in the US to finish up my undergrad, and I wanted a bit of a change, so I went and studied for 3 months in Beijing, China, and I was like, wow, this is 19-year-old me. I was like, whoa, this is really tough, and I didn't actually quite like it that much.
So you studied in Beijing?
Yeah, I was working and did like an internship there for 3 months over the summer between my junior and my senior year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I didn't like this. This was hard.
What was hard about it?
The cultural differences, right? That for me was such a shock. Like, I really struggled, I think because it was the first time I'd been out of the country by myself, and like I didn't really have that many people when I was there. I was like, wow, this is tough. And like I was learning Mandarin, but like when you get there and you have to put it into practice, it's like, well, how much have you actually really retained? Like, how much can you actually remember? And so after that, I was like, oh, I really need to go somewhere else. I need a bit of something that's a little bit easier, but like I wanna do something before I graduate. And I ended up here in London actually doing my last semester studying abroad. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh wow, this is I like this. And then so I had a job in the US lined up. I turned it down, and I did my master's in finance here that next year, and I've been here ever since.
Going back to the China situation, which I find quite fascinating.
Yep.
What part of America are you from?
So I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, the Midwest. Yeah.
So that's kind of it's probably not diverse.
Yeah.
So you kind of threw yourself in the deep end?
I did, yeah. That's probably as deep as you can get, to be honest. Like, it was, where I come from is very, predominantly white area, like, very, like, country, small town, like, and then to go from that to Beijing, you're dropping yourself in such a different experience. And
it's a massive city.
Yeah. And the university I went to was the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and it's a small, like, it's a nice town. It's a bit bigger, but it's still nothing compared to the Beijing size cities. So, yeah.
What was there? Was there anything positive about that experience?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think for me, like, I don't regret it, and I would do it again if I was a 19-year-old me. It was just tough, and like being away from everything that I found familiar was extremely, you have to kind of live in this area of discomfort. You have to accept that you're going to be kind of learning new things every single day and every single thing you do. But I think it made me a lot more independent quite quickly, which is great. So, yeah.
What would you say you learned that you wish you knew when you had started?
When I went there?
Yeah. Did you, that 3 months, was that the maximum amount of time you was meant to be there, or was it meant to be longer and you cut it short?
No, I didn't cut it short. I wanted to cut it short at times, I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't, and I think that was really good. But if something I wish I had known, I think I wish I would have known how tough it would have been right at the beginning. Like, I think I went in having this expectation that a lot of people would speak English, and that it would be pretty easy to navigate, even if I didn't remember things in Mandarin. And this was in 2015, so for me, I actually found it a little bit of a shell shock that they don't actually know, like, a lot of the older generation don't know that much English, right? So trying to get around and stuff, you have to really kind of pick out who you asked, and like if you really needed help and couldn't get around. So yeah, I think for me that would well, it would have been something I would have appreciated to know ahead of time.
I know. I suppose in their eyes, they look at it where there's 1.5 billion of us, and you lot don't know
100%.
much Chinese.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So, when did your football career started?
Oh, so I played in the US since I was like 3 years old. And then I played a little bit while I was at the University of Michigan on their club team. And then I came here and played for Queen Mary, University of London women's team. And at that point, I liked it quite a lot. But I was like, I'm not, like, I liked getting back in the swing of things. It was pretty competitive. And I was like, like maybe if I stay, I'll look for another more competitive team, see if I can play. And that's when I got a job here. And so I ended up trying out for, at the time, was Leyton Orient women's team. So started playing with them for about a season, and then unfortunately got into a pretty bad ski accident where I ended up tearing my ACL and my MCL and my meniscus, so in my left knee. So 2 years on, and I'm still trying to get back to playing again, which it unfortunately wouldn't be able to be for Leyton Orient anymore because they have disbanded their women's team.
How is it?
Yeah, they came a decision last year where they, I think for funding reasons, the men's team kind of got rid of the women's team, and so.
But it's what pays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of opportunities and
absolutely,
etc. It's all about, we're a business at the end of the day. What league were they in when you were playing?
So I think it's like the equivalent of League One. It's obviously at the time.
League One.
Yeah, so like it's shifted, right? So you've got now the 2 super leagues, and then you have the league under that, and we sat in the Women's National League, which is super good, to be honest. While I was there and while I was training, like, it was a good environment. I really liked it. It's just super unfortunate to have such a bad injury. I'm at 25. So, but yeah, so I think give me another 6 months, probably be trialing some other places and trying to stay in that same league is the goal. So
doing a lot of swimming?
I do a lot of everything. I'm about to do a 160k cycle just to challenge myself here in May, and did a triathlon last year.
Where are you gonna cycle to?
So I've actually signed up to do the Ride 100, the Essex. So it's a 100-mile cycle, 160k, and I've set on a pretty aggressive target of 6.5 hours to finish it. So, but yeah, just trying to kind of push myself, and
there must be loads of people signing up for that kind of thing because everyone's cycling nowadays.
Yeah, it's good. Like, I think a lot of people do it just to kind of push themselves, and then you've got people who do it for charity and awareness for things that they support. And yeah, I think cycling is, because of the pandemic, obviously it's become super big, but also I think it's really good for anyone who's going through rehab, like rehabilitation. Like, it's the one thing you can kind of do really early on. So yeah,
going back to the football,
yep,
what's the training regime like and nutrition regime for when you were at the club?
Yeah, so I think training was twice a week, and then we'd have a fitness session as well, which was good. And then women's football is hard, right? Because everyone, unfortunately, also has other jobs, and you don't get paid at this league. So it's like one of those things where you have to just kind of make everything work for yourself. Like, you have to be able to do a lot of things at once, and like accept that you're going to be consistently busy because you're training, 2-3 times a week, and then you're playing on the weekends. And the only things that are really covered are like your travel and like your bus and all of your gear. But it's nothing like, the Women's Super League, top league. It's not. You're grinding. You're really grinding. And I think that's just the best way to explain it. In terms of nutrition, like, that was kind of, at least for when I was there, the manager it was more on you. Like, you kind of had to hold yourself accountable. It wasn't like someone was going to do that for you, which is good to some extent. Like, but, I think once you get into that, like, top 2 leagues, like, then they obviously regiment you a lot more. But, so, yeah.
How long has I don't know if you know, how long has the women's leagues been around?
Oh, I don't actually. Sadly, I don't actually know that for this country. Yeah.
What about America?
Oh, it's not been around that long. I think really, to be honest with you, women's team, from what I can remember at least, like when the first kind of like greats started popping onto the scene, like Mia Hamm and like Abby Wambach, that was when women's football kind of took off, but that was in like 1980s, 1990s.
So they've been making their progress, making their way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of progress to be made, especially in this country, to be honest. I think the US has kind of found their rhythm with the women's side of things, and we've kind of dominated that space now in the national league, like on the national level. But I think because of the last World Cup, this country has really started to grow its women's side. But I think that starts from a grassroots level. I think if you don't have the correct funding and the correct kind of like coaching right at the beginning, it's going to kind of struggle, and that's where I think a lot of the things that America does right are sitting. It's right when you're like 3, 4, 5 years old, and you're actually making the women's team, like the girls, do just as much as the boys, and I think that made a big difference in a lot of development. So yeah.
I hear you. I suppose that with the women's teams here now, they're an advantage in the fact that originally when the men's teams were created, like you said, they had to have a job because they weren't getting paid, and that went through like many years, and they've built themselves up to status. So women's can kind of come in, and if anyone who's good can piggyback on the fact there's a financial beast already, and they just slot in.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that respect there.
Absolutely.
When you were doing your training, what kind of exercises were they having you do?
Yeah, so I think most of it revolved around like technical stuff. You'd always have like a technical bit of the session, like working on normal things like passing, dribbling, right? There was always an element of fitness as well. And then we'd work on defense or offense, or you know, if you wanted to work on set pieces that day, you'd work on set pieces, and then we'd always at the end of it have like an 11-a-side scrimmage, or like a 6v6, or depend on what the coach wanted to work on that day. But yeah, the training plan was always very laid out and very regimented, and in that regard it was great. It's just one of those things where, you know, you don't have endless funding, and you don't have endless, you know, resources at your disposal, so you work with what you've got and
make it work.
Yeah.
Okay. Now obviously you've been living in England and you're a bit of a nomad. How do your parents feel the fact that you've kind of just up and gone from their little town, and then you went to China, now you're in England?
Yeah, you know, I've been here almost 5 years now, and they're still coming around to this idea that I might live here permanently. For them, that's a really tough change. I've got really Republican parents who live in a small town. That's where they lived for their whole life. And, you know, that's good. Like, I don't fault anyone for making that decision, and I think that they're really happy there. But for me, that's not where I want to be. And, you know, I try and explain, like, I work in the finance industry. I wouldn't be in Cincinnati, Ohio, working. I'd be in Chicago or, you know, Silicon Valley or New York. So for me, I don't see a difference. Like, I have to jump on a plane either way, but for them, they're like, you know, I can't get to you quick enough. I can't, you know, if something happens, I can't get to you. And
are you only child?
I'm not, actually. I'm the oldest of 3. Yeah. So
is there a big age gap between you and your younger siblings?
So my sister and I are 1.5 years between, and then my brother is 6 years between me and him. So he's a little bit younger.
So your parents have sat them down and said, don't follow your sister. You're not going.
I think they would let them, but like my sister, she did some study abroad here in Scotland, actually, but while I was here, and she's done some cool things, but I think both of them are kind of settled in Cincinnati, and I think they like where they live, and I think my parents are quite happy that they're not going to up and leave as well.
Do they come over here to visit you?
Not that much, no. So I see them probably once a year, which I know to a lot of people is crazy, but my dad doesn't like it here. He doesn't like, they can't get in his car and drive his big truck around, and he really likes what he calls his freedom. he doesn't like the public transport. So he's like, I just can't do it. I can't live in a city. And that's just the type of person he is. He likes, But my mom likes it here. She's been here a bit more often.
So, well, I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think of London?
I actually really love London. I think it's a really great city. I think I really, when I first came here, I felt really at home here. I felt like, you've kind of got everything at your disposal. You can be outside London and into the country quite easily, but you've got like everything you could ever want to do here. Like, you can go out, you can have nice dinners. Like, I think where I'm from, I was just not used to that accessibility. And you have so much of it here. It's really hard now for me to be like, I'd ever leave it. So yeah, it's just like a cool place to live. Like, you've got so much different, like, diversity here. And you go to Shoreditch, you're gonna have like, Shoreditch, Hackney area. You've got all the like cool, like, hipster East London vibes, and you go west, and it's a bit more like, nice established area. And I don't know, it's just cool because you can go to north, east, west, south, and you get a different vibe in each one of them. I really find that cool as well.
Okay. What can London learn from the States? What can the States learn from London?
Oh, that's a good question. We can learn a lot, to be honest. I really think, Americans like to say we're a big melting pot. And I think that's true in some areas and like pockets, but I think one thing that the UK does really well is it's diverse across the entire country. Well, okay, not the entire country, right? You've got spots where there are definitely... Yeah. We've got our kind of Bible Belt. Yeah. But I think, if I were to say as a whole, I think it is more diverse than America, truthfully. And I know people would argue that, and that's fine. That might be a controversial thing to say. But I think America needs to be a bit more accepting, which I'm sure some people will not agree with. But and the other way around, I think I don't really know anything that London could.
Well, we've had a 1,000-year plus start.
Yeah.
Ahead of you.
Yeah.
Talking about that, do you know your heritage? Are you German? Are you Scottish? Irish?
I actually don't know. A lot of people are like, what?
Find that out, man. You could be at home here. You could be, Dad, that's why I'm here, so I'm back home.
Yeah.
And he'd look at you.
I have no idea. A lot of people are like, oh, how do you not know that? And because I think a lot of people here do know.
What's your surname?
Welch.
Oh, you're English. No, because surnames were created on the basis of tax. Okay. So when they wanted to tax people, I think in the medieval time, whatever, they weren't sure how to do it. Okay. And you tax people based on your trade.
Nice.
So everybody who was a blacksmith was automatically called Smith. Okay. Yeah. And thatcher, thatch and make roofs and all the rest of it. Got it. So Welsh is, I can't remember what that is specifically creates to what trade-wise. It's an English. Oh, cool. That's nice. In that respect. I didn't know that. You can Google it. Absolutely. Fine it down to save you having to pay 150 quid for a DNA test. Yeah. In that respect. We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day as well as vlogging on our social media channels. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.